you bring up sabbatical, and I hear people when I talk about this sometimes say, well, that sounds awesome for the pastor to be able to do that, but my job doesn't give me a sabbatical. How do I find that same sense of rest as a teacher or as a mechanic, or, what, fill in the blank with your job? How can they incorporate those same principles?
Well, I think, that the rhythms of rest are really important. So there's weekly rhythms, there's daily rhythms of rest, weekly rhythms of rest, and then kind of, on a larger scale, these kind of annual or even over a 6 or 7 year period. I will say I've talked to some people that work not in the church world, and they've actually had conversations with their boss saying, hey, I'm feeling X, Y, and Z, and I would really love the opportunity to fill in this gap for a month. And would you be willing to let me have a month off? And I've talked with a lot of people in the working world. They're amazed at how receptive their bosses are to that sort of idea. I know 3 months is a long time. Honestly, I feel like 3 months for sabbatical was great. After 1 month, I really did gain about 90% of what I would have gained the other 2 months, After month 3, I was like, okay, I get it, Lord. I'm rested up. When am I going back to work, 1 month was really the life-changing section for me. So I think maybe you are a teacher and you're like, there's no way I can do that. Teachers, for the most part, which really, really nice. You get maybe your summers or whatever. Yeah. So maybe those moments where you have off and you're tempted to just pack them full of things, maybe do something different. Sabbatical for us, the first month of our sabbatical was in Peru. We got out of America and we went into a completely different world. And so we were in the middle of the Amazon jungle. Nobody there had ever heard of Hillsong or, like Elevation. It was like completely different. What they valued was totally different. And it was really refreshing because it was like, okay, you get disconnected from it, because it's hard when you're in the middle of it to disconnect from it. So, we went somewhere like that. I think a lot of people, when you do like a 2-week even missions trip or something like that, and you, instead of believing that rest only comes by sitting by the beach, sometimes rest comes from working the other field. Again, that's kind of the biblical idea of it. Yeah. So maybe you're taking a couple of weeks and you're doing actually a missions trip, which feels like, oh my gosh, I'm pouring out. It's going to make me more tired. You'd be amazed. You do come back tired, but you come back with a lot of perspective. You come back with a lot of, I've been away from my day to day, and that's also pretty refreshing. And then if you're, so if you only have that kind of 2 weeks off a year sort of situation, you can really think outside of the box in terms of what you think is recharging. Because so many people I talk to, like they've been waiting for that vacation, and they get that beach house and they go to the beach house, and then they come back and they're like, I'm just as tired as when I left, that kind of bitter, I need a vacation from my vacation sort of comment, And I think so many times is like we're just we've got a weird idea of what rest is. It's not necessarily just napping. Rest also does include working. I heard this great line that if you work with your mind, Sabbath with your hands. And for those of us in the church, we work with our mind. One of the things that in 2020, I was really like spinning my wheels like a lot of people were. And I found myself building tables in our garage, just building these big tables, outdoor tables for people, for clients. And it was a little side money, not much. I was undercharging for sure. But that was kind of restful for me. Like you come back from church after a long day of working and you're kind of like, what did I really accomplish today? You have this, you're struggling with all these things emotionally. And I find myself going, okay, I need to work with my hands a little bit and know at the end of the day, I built this table. I could hit it with my hands. I know what I did today, So there's a lot of different perspectives when it comes to Sabbath. But really, I do think it's thinking outside of the box a little bit and having some brave conversations with your leadership or your team, no matter who they are. If they hate Jesus and there's nothing about them, like you've got a secular leader that really doesn't, whatever work you're in, you'd be amazed though at how receptive people are to the idea of getting a little bit of extended time.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I hear a lot of teaching about Sabbath, and I talk to a lot of people about sabbaticals, but rarely do I find anybody using that language of working the other field and like really
Yeah.
going back to that biblical concept. So I think that's a really, really great and important handle.